Just want to wait about 5 more minutes. I don't know. I should call them, see if they're coming.
The shelter's open, the shelter's open though. People go to that shelter.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The Samaritan shelter?
Yeah, the one that's over here that's what I heard, that it was open.
For sleeping and eating?
Yeah, they've always fed up, and they've always slept there. They just don't want it there all day long, taking up room and doing nothing.
I'm not sure about that.
But when we had that meeting at the Presbyterian Church, didn't they say they'd be opening the next day or the following
They
Monday?
did, but then I heard that was open.
The only thing I heard was they were giving somebody else.
Email and phone number, just so we get kind of the following. And if there's anyone you think wants to come to this, you can have them too. We'll keep on reaching out.
We'll just keep on.
And it's,
Just, have fun, make sure that people are interested in what we're doing, and people will come.
Yeah.
They'll do it, and they will.
It's interesting though, it was on the community calendar and I don't know.
yeah, it's the factor of, well, I'll tell you, like, for example, Sundays, I'll have to ask that we try to aim for another day of the week. Apparently that steps on, it's the schedule of things, and we are definitely caught in this, it's hard to put out that extra time for a lot of people, it really is.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping that we can create as a way for just even a small amount of effort from everybody, just a tiny bit, if need be, to use that all as a giant gathering in its own way. And it's hard, for people to, see something new and say, well, I want to give my time.
Yeah, right.
And so, we'll get there. And,
Yeah, we will.
we have some, things that we can help, create a community with.
Do you have a clipboard?
I don't have a clipboard.
That would be good for throwing it around.
Here. And while we're waiting for a few, I'd like to pass out kind of
Oh, thanks.
a little bit of what I feel to be maybe a future goal to keep us kind of going. It's not something we can do right now, but it's something that we could, definitely aspire to. And of course, for anyone who might be watching this, video online and is unsure of what they're doing with their time and all that, I'm just going to go over some of the basics, like I'm kind of going to do all the time, about what is the Allied Sovereignties Coalition, what do we believe, and how do we believe that's going to do anything as far as working. So, once again, I want to talk a little bit about how, find a seat here.
And I'm sorry, I have something at 3, so I might leave before the meeting's over.
It's okay, it's all right. We'll block the camera view here. There we go. No, I'm blocking it there. That's okay. There we go. Okay. So, part of the handout that you guys got is, this piece right here. It looks very much like a pie chart at the top, a little ornate, and you'll have to forgive my color printer. It seems to be, that's the only thing. So, anyhow, the ideal is that the way society works has created a machine, a mechanism that creates the conditions and the unsavory attitudes, actions, and even personnel that we're all seeing. So the example that I've used a couple of times is a superstore that we're probably all aware that exists, and it's not the only one, is where the balance of money that's made by the said superstore really funnels largely into the pockets of just ownership, elites we call them, the hotshot, the gears of greed. And the issue that creates, if you look at the very second picture underneath it, is that it creates an imbalance of power. So what we're saying is that industry in general creates the sort of disruption that we're seeing, where there is an unequal balance of resources for the populace. And it is that fundamental phenomena that exists now that continues to create the same problem. So for example, just any business can own a business, a person can own a business, have a bunch of workers. Those workers can give an X amount of time, usually almost 90% of their time, while the owner collects. Okay, this is how we call it the American pie. This is how business is designed. So the fight to this is that the ASC, the Allied Sovereignties Coalition, is trying to create a better balance of things. So what we're going to do, or want to do, is to try to own resources, enterprise, and ultimately decisions that affect others, okay? And what I mean by that is that, for example, if you're a plumber going into a plumbing industry, you get hired, you're not making a whole lot of money with your time. You're making bottom dollar usually, and whoever owns it typically is pocketing all the money. Okay, that's the way we're doing it right now. What I'm saying and what we're saying is that is what has created what we see now, the imbalances of power, okay? So if you look at the very bottom picture, what we're trying to do is restore everyone's dignity in exchange for the time that they're already spending. We see it as ludicrous to pay people more than minimum wage, but we don't see it ludicrous to allow individuals to pocket so much money that they almost are unstoppable when it comes to their resources. They have influence on everything, from government to how a city runs. And what we're saying is that ownership needs to be re-reflected back into the community. The last little page.
You know, we know all that.
Yeah, I'm saying it for new members. So I'm doing a quick breakdown so that.
Very good, actually.
The last image is showing the 7111, and that's this image right here. This is a balance. This is a change in the balance. So what we're saying is that the worker should have the majority of that for their time being paid to them. And that of ownership and that of any other thing, needs to take a much smaller sum. And what we're saying by that is that a community can and should own the industries that serve. And we have someone coming in right now.
The communities and the workers.
Yes. So the worker being the community itself. These are the individuals that build the city in the first place. So it's very strange that in a city, for example, like ours, that the people really have very little power. And the only power that they tend to have is that which is elected power. Okay, so those who represent the electorals, those who are at the higher echelon of education, while everyone else who works very much more than some, I want to say, and I'm not saying that all upper echelon people are kind of like a loafer of the society, but they do tend to take advantage of everyone else who's working very hard and very long with their entire time. So yeah, that's the end. Okay. Now, so I can get out of that. I want to talk about, and this is again for those who already know this. Please bear with me. I'll do this a little bit so that anyone watching the video who might catch it might be captured out there to help them understand what we're building. So I'm going to just read some simple basic values that the ASC will try to uphold. And so these are the pillars, are the values of this Allied Sovereignty Coalition. They aren't just rules, they are the fundamental truths that ensure the ant-mound, as we have been calling it, remains a sanctuary of freedom rather than a cage of control. The pillar of all, which is the value of all, and then this is actually from a very old way of thinking. All sentient beings must possess liberty, which is freedom through sovereignty. This pillar establishes well-being is a universal right, not a luxury for the elite. It asserts that true liberty is impossible without sovereignty. The ability to live without the crushing weight of systemic lag, When we speak of all, we mean that the benefits of our technology, our medicine, and our collective wealth must flow downward to the base of the mount, ensuring that every soul has the floor they need to stand on and the air they need to breathe. Look around at our world. That tells you that you have to earn the right to exist. Right now, that's the status quo. We say no. We believe that if we are here, you belong. We are building a reality where no one is left to winter in the shadows of someone else's greed. The pillar of all is a promise that the light we create shines on every face in this room, not just the ones at the top. It is the end of the age of not enough and the beginning of the age of ours. The pillar is sovereignty. Sovereignty thrives when everyone does as they wish to achieve their well-being, prosperity, and liberty without causing harm. Again, a very old law. It is the law that we might associate to, natural and very ancient practices, people that lived amongst the trees saying, do as you wish, but harm none. Sovereignty is the right of the individual to the sole architect of their own life. It is the freedom to pursue your joy, your craft, and your purpose without being harvested by a machine that doesn't know your name. The only boundary to this pillar is the harm of another. As long as your walk does not trample your neighbor's garden, you are the absolute crown of your existence. We don't ask this for this right. We manifest it through the structure of our coalition. You were not born to fuel the engine or grease the engine of greed. The gears of greed don't need that from you. You were born to be a sovereign being. This pillar is the line in the sand that says, my life belongs to me. That's always should have. It is the quiet, unshakable power of knowing that your choices, your labor, and your future are back in your own hands. We aren't just taking back our time. We are taking back our dignity. Your crown is your own, and the ASC is the fortress that keeps it there. The pillar of coalition code. Any individual holds the right to invoke their sovereignty, and in order to preserve it, everyone should and must preserve the sovereignty of others. This is the DNA of the Outmount. It is the realization that a single spark is easily extinguished, but a collective fire can withstand any storm. The code is a bond of mutual protection. I protect your prosperity because it is the only way to truly secure my own. It replaces the sputtering pollution of competition with the frictionless symbiosis of a community that understands we either rise together as sovereigns or fall apart as subjects. They want us to believe that we are rivals, fighting for crumbs. The code tells us the truth, that we are a single, powerful organism. When I stand guard over your prosperity, I am building the wall that protects my own home. When I ensure you are paid fairly, I'm ensuring my children have a world worth living in. We are moving away from the lonely cold into the warmth of the code. My strength is yours, your success is mine, and together we are untouchable. Okay, that's enough of my ranting. I have a few things to show you, and then I'm going to be passing around this symbol here. And the symbol that I have here, well, I guess I had less image pictures than I thought. Okay, so what I have here is an actual druid's staff, okay? Now, it hasn't been as long as the practice, but it has been in service for 25 years. It has gone through very ancient and very known ritual, mostly fire watching. So as I brought a scepter last time, this is a symbol of the embracing of wisdom from a very old order. Knowing that peering into the darkness is also peering into the light in some way. The unknown. So we don't know what the future holds for us, but we're very wary of it right now. I think every viewer would agree that things just don't seem right. So now's a good time to invoke a collective that once was. And it used to be under an oak tree. This is made of oak, okay? And this symbol here was usually the watcher under that oak. The ritual was a simple, not blood, ritual taking a seed from the tree, roasting it in the fire, and eating it, to take the seed of knowledge into yourself. I envision, as I have passed around this image here, you'll see what might be a bright future for a problem that we're having in the community. Homelessness, individuals looking for a place to be. Something that has robbed them of their dignity. And so what we have now isn't working. It's just simple. It's just not working, okay? It's kind of a begging system. We're basically having to beg for more resources to take care of the people we already should. Now, I had someone tell me, something about, hey, maybe what we should do is write to Congress, tell them, look, there's an imbalance in the way we're paid. They know. They know, okay? And here's the other thing is that if we go there and ask the people to do what they already should be doing, because that's their job, once again, we are subjects asking the king to do the right thing. Instead, what we can do is aspire to the right thing and do the right thing. In the mix, little hope for us all, I was inquiring how to do some fundraising for both us, the homeless, and actually, I think there's a third cause we might want to be prepared for, especially these fires. And that is some form of fundraising. And I looked at a company in Albuquerque, and it turns out they no longer come out this way. So that forced me to have the opportunity to look at something that was in our own backyard. I'm going to pass this around. This is a fundraising thing where what we do is, or what is done is these little cards are sold for $20 from Domino's Pizza. Okay, and it's actually pretty gainful. So once you purchase one of these cards, of course you don't get a pizza right off the bat, but you get a buy one, get one free pizza of any build. So, if they go like 5 toppings on the pizza, they get the second one for free, okay? And I thought about this. This could be a beginning of, something that's gainful operation because, if you're a football coach, for example, you gotta buy 10 pizzas for your players. They're gonna want one of these. If you're a teacher, if you're a church leader. So this is actually, it's just something that's existing there. Yes, they're making $10 off of it, but it's a 50-50 game. So whatever fundraising group is working through them, they get 50% of the money that this raises. So
Did Domino's come up with that, or
Domino's had this just right there on their
on the
table,
counter?
right there on the counter.
Because I'm thinking that guy at JC's is also very community-minded. He
Interesting.
might want to do something similar.
I think we can use as many as possible. The more the merrier. 'Cause
Okay,
as you can see, that compound there, I believe that half of it's going to be built by those who reside there, meaning those that are struggling for some form of what we call social redemption. I don't know what it is, but I put a pueblo in there because people have been living out in New Mexico for thousands of years, and they were building it from the ground up with their hands and the things that were available to them. So I believe that can be done again as what we would call a hostel, okay? And the hostel mentality means that it's not a permanent thing, but it's not an uncomfortable thing either. So there's rustic ways of building shelter for people that do not require all these things. Of course, you got to go with state and city code. You got to meet requirements. But if the walls themselves can be built with something other than high value materials, and you can also maybe produce those materials as an export out of the compound, you almost could with growing crops, building bricks, and any other textiles or craft fund its own self. Basically, it would pay for itself at some point. I'll pass this around.
I met a guy last fall who is in charge of building an adobe house up at Luna College. Have you?
It's so the speaker.
So, I just wondered if you knew him about that.
Which one? What is it?
He's building adobe, showing people how to build adobe houses.
I've heard of something.
It's a classical.
Okay.
Yeah,
someone like that could be involved in something like this.
Probably would want to be, he was very community-minded.
The last bit I want to show you before I start passing that staff around, which is, just an old ritual of speakers, right? Is, I think the ASC has a lot to handle, a lot to solve. I'm going to show these.
What's this?
So this is an experiment that I've been ongoingly doing, and so have other universities right here. What I'm holding is a concrete experiment. Okay, so we've got a lot to worry about these days. This was an experiment that I did showing that when you put water with concrete, you don't get much of that water back. On top of that, per gram, you're putting out half that amount in carbon, both for production and consumption during the curing process. This is actually very toxic for our environment right now. It's messing us up.
Concrete?
Concrete.
Not too many people know about that.
I didn't.
So I want to try to plant the seed of what ASC should maybe start thinking about. We're not just looking for the problems, we're looking for the solutions too. This came from our very own bedrock of Story Lake. This is sandstone. Sandstone turns out, according to not just one, not just two, but many research and development from universities abroad, have found that we can replicate this material in just a couple of days using what we think is a problem when it comes to the homeless people. And I'll just say it. We've heard it in our very own cities, that there's defecating on, sidewalks. There's their waste to be a problem.
All human waste.
All human waste to be a problem. Well, it turns out that sandstone that you're holding right there was formed with urea, yes, human urine, mixed with calciums in the soil and sand, okay? And that process has produced all the sandstone, or almost all of the sandstone that we know. And we can actually replicate this in the lab. And not only is it carbon sequestering, that means it absorbs carbon out of the atmosphere. It has very, very little energy input out of all of that which you've already done in your own digestive system with bacteria. So in other words, it's a solution that could be integrated into this, this compound that we're showing here. We're talking about building communities that are better. So it's funny that we produce so much waste and we don't know what to do with it. Whereas in Africa, Tanzania, there's an actual village that takes their waste and goes all circle. There is not a single ounce of it that doesn't get used for it. One of their uses, believe it or not, is firewood. They have a process that they take their waste and they create a type of firewood out of it. And it's actually very high energy, okay? So that's what I wanted to bring to this whole thing, is that ASC is looking for the solutions for what we call the big problem. And it's a big undertaking, but there's a lot of things, especially with the group, that we can contribute. So with that being said, I want to stop talking so much during these meetings, other than to just introduce to new members what we're all about. Maybe we can have someone else do that the next time, because that would be much easier and better. But I want to give us an opportunity to speak together and pass around this symbol, the staff for speaking.
Oh, good. So this week I went to a conference on assisted outpatient treatment. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of it before, but it's a new law that was passed that allows people that are either have severe mental illness or other kinds of issues to find a pathway forward by using myself as a prosecutor, the judge, defense counsel, all the AP, PO, probation, parole, all the treatment facilities, all working together on one big round table. And this is a new law, and it's been bottlenecked by my inability to work with the medical professionals, which I have now, after this conference, learned it's really all about collaboration. So my intent now is to go to all the doctors in town and give them this information packet that they need to give to me so I can file a motion to have this person entered into the assisted outpatient treatment program. We don't have anybody in there right now, so there are guidelines, but it's really going to be everybody that's in this program's responsibility to make it work. And when we do that, we don't have any funding. So it's all going to be based upon their own power to fix themselves through medication, using the doctors, using counsel to get them housing. It's going to be a collaboration, and we need more and more collaboration to make it work. So I think that this is a great example of what I would like to see happen with it, where they can all work together to build something that they can call their own. And I believe through this coalition, we could potentially make the funding that could help these people get their lives back and find themselves not crushed by modern life and the ways we have to live. So my proposition is I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to ask whoever wants to help. But regardless, I will do everything I can to help. So I think that's really what sovereignty is. You can just do what you need to do to survive and be happy, but you can rely on others to help in every other regard. So that's my
Josh, are you
proposition.
talking specifically about homeless people or people who are addicted? I mean,
People with severe mental illness.
oh, severe mental illness.
Was the conference here in town?
There's an Albuquerque.
That could take in people who have addictions too, right? Is that-
This program is meant for the ones that can't fix it themselves.
Can't fix it themselves. And that goes for a lot of people who are on drugs.
Drugs are usually an issue, but the primary diagnosis is usually like a schizoaffective disorder or something that just makes them just not see reality for what it could be. But through working together and their doctors giving them the necessary drugs that they need, I think that we could really bring them back and have them be part of just reality.
It sounds
Society.
like, you know, a lot of people who
it's-
stay in the halfway houses,
Mhm.
they come out and it's kind of a loose business, it sounds like, you know?
Mhm.
They don't have enough money, their money is being, you know, taken by whoever's taking care of them, they're out in the streets trying to find money.
They have nothing to do all day of their lives.
Yeah,
That reminds me, I forgot to mention it, it's in the picture. There is an image of a building called a labor ready in that diagram. Now, classically, and I had to work a labor ready when I was homeless. Labor readies are W-2 ready employees. It's a company or an agency that takes people from all walks of life. You know, they have to do background check and they got to do other things to maintain.
People who can't find a job.
People who can't find a job or are in a condition physically, maybe, you know, that they don't fit the bill of being hired. And the duties range from construction cleanup to movie set or set work, hospitality, you name it. Now, unfortunately, especially my experience was is that we didn't get paid a whole lot. We got paid enough to, I guess, keep us there. So a couple times I went to the Albuquerque Journal, and I was one of the many hundreds of people putting the newspapers into their bundles. I was also one of the individuals on the drywall factory that you see driving into Albuquerque. Now the conditions can be kind of rough, but you see these agencies are supposed to be there providing personal protective equipment, training, and insurance while they're working. So the employees often take these guys because they're not a permanent employee and they just need them for a little while. But it's a great way for someone to put a little bit of cash in their pocket. You have to be careful. You want to, you know, that they were very careful about, you know, the individuals if they're on drugs and all that stuff, or you know, doing anything that might endanger others. You know, they had to gauge that. But these labor readies are also known to be kind of exploitive. So, you know, in the distant future, maybe when the ASC has that compound right there or bigger, you know, is a type of, you know, from street to treatment to, you know, some sort of life that they can live with. That, you know, we have our own version of that. And it's not against the law, for example, for ranchers to take people in and exchange their work, meaning the individual's work, for the home and board. And because that has been taken advantage of, it's under a strict observation rule that says that the ranch, the owner of the ranch has to pay them the dollar amount per hour and use that as a deduction for, what they're getting out of rent. In other words, they still almost have to pay them every time. But, it's a little less. So this stuff exists. It's just not widely known. And I know that there's individuals out there who could probably easily work on a ranch, and it would probably help them to help them detox, especially in their minds, It's getting them to an activity. I'll admit that I don't believe that the way homeless shelters works is actually beneficial for the individual. And as an individual who had to take food because I had no other choice, that does not restore my dignity. When I had to take free food from people or money, that was less than dignifying. When I had the opportunity to do something about my situation and climb out of the hole, believe it or not, that really made me feel different. And I believe that for everyone else. That's the way. So, with the coalition's blessing, I'd like to move on talking to the individuals over at Domino's and also creating a flyer and starting this fundraising program and learning a little bit more about how it works. I think all it entails is us as members getting people to buy, using their phone app, the card. The card gets mailed to the individual, and then the person starts using it, and the minute they start using their card, it's already a fundraising activity. 50% of what it occurs. So, I say that would work because, people get hungry in this town, and, pizza is one of the mainstays for birthday parties and everything else. So it's, I want to look at all the caveats. But yeah, I want to start doing that. And yeah, whatever ideal you guys have at getting that distributed, once I figure out more, all us, do a little bit together. I was thinking maybe I can offer it during a computer clinic at some point. I want to do a computer clinic as a fundraising source for the coalition. I want to set up somewhere, possibly at the homeless shelter, if they'll allow me. It would help the community see it being used for something other than what it's being used, I guess. And, provide a service for individuals who have clanky computers. The 2 computers that are recording this meeting right now are restored computers, something that I do, with a Linux Mint operating system that's very secure. So, maybe a lot of people in this community are just afraid to go and ask for help. If maybe we put a beginning of, fundraising for emergency, and I think this word's really good, emergency homeless and crisis aid, and for the formation of a organization that seeks to create community resources and enterprise. I think if we have that, as you're raising money for all of this. A lot of people look at, I don't want to give my money to the homeless, just people that don't want to work. Well, there's a way to sell this too. What if we can get those people back to work? They just need an opportunity. It's not easy to go into a job interview with an education. I can imagine what it's like for these people, trying to get a job when they're told, go get a job. Okay, I can just see how that looks. Go to a motel. I can be a cleaner for you, maybe they're giving off an odor, maybe they don't look, well enough for the job. It's got to be really hard. All I know is that those people over at the Labor Ready were there since 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting for it to process them and get them to the work site. And they were there by the hundreds. Not all of them got picked. I got lucky. I found the little narrows through the whole system to get myself to work. So, there's a lot that could be built. And even if we have
I can offer my services as a pro bono attorney as well as a music instructor.
Wow. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Can anyone go into Samaritan House shelter? Can you just go in and see what's going on there?
I knocked on the door.
Are you just anyone?
I'm a
you're with the
prosecutor.
DA, aren't you?
Yeah,
So you're not just anyone.
I'm not going to abuse my power, but I can just walk in and see what happens.
As just anybody? Because I'm curious if they would like classes. A lot of people would offer classes pro bono.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe ongoing, maybe just like a one-time workshop.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did go there, but the door was locked. I did knock for a little bit, but there was no one there. Maybe,
I think we have to find out what's going on there.
I've generally seen a car there and there's chairs outside, like people are around.
yeah, they're around. I know that the issue is funding right now, or that's what's being said, and there are some caveats to the ordinance. I found one of them that might be giving them a little bit of an ache in the side, and that is that they're supposed to be, according to the ordinance, what is it, like 1,000 feet away from any place that serves liquor. Unfortunately, right next to them is a gas station with liquor.
And Dick's is right there too.
Dick's is closer, yeah. 1,000 feet does make it.
Well, when did this law, maybe their grandfather, or they wouldn't have built this.
I would think that there's some grandfathering respects to this.
Do you know when that law was passed?
No, not necessarily, but do we have to rely on Samaritan House as the only method?
I don't think so.
I don't think we
Any,
should.
any ideas are welcome.
I think the coalition should move forward on their own.
I think so too. And I think it would be a great partner for the assisted outpatient treatment program, because the people that come through my office, found incompetent, get sent back to outside where they commit another crime, or they go to the hospital or Samaritan House where they are in this revolving door where they just don't seem to have an outlet or an access to find a way out. And by diverting them to a process where they can better themselves, at least in this limited capacity with people with severe mental health, we can alleviate the burden on Samaritan House, alleviate the burden on the courts, on the hospitals, on just general public society.
Do you need a location for what you want to do?
No, we have a court, but we need like funding and ways that we can give these people something to do. So if they want to do like art or guitar, they want to learn how to play guitar, I can teach them how. Or that's where I find conflict too, because I'm a prosecutor. So I would need to find people that could do that, as opposed to me wanting to do it myself, but I can provide space for it. I can provide in other ways. So I can only do so much, and it just definitely requires the community to come together, because there are other ways we can go about it, but it's really collaboration. That was the key word from this whole conference I went to, collaboration and funding. And I'm willing to do everything I can to make it happen, because I believe we can treat people that feel left out in society and give them a place or something, just an opportunity. That's my hope at least. So that's my ask as well. I don't know what that entitles or means exactly, but I am asking.
On this image, put this right here. On this image here that I have, I want to explain what exactly I put on this image here. You see in the left to right order of reading, individuals arriving to an aircraft hangar-like structure. That's for costs and effectiveness, getting something up quick, easy, it's buildable, okay? Inside of it is actually a bunch of tents. These are temporary tents, medical, you can name them anything, okay? This is geared to be a crisis center. I learned this in the military, okay? You have processing tables, showers, bathrooms, you have the whole 9 yards in here. This is a processing thing, okay? What's to be discovered here is whether someone needs to be taken to rehab, medical attention probably, more than likely, most of the time, especially in the freezing cold. Okay, and then, also to determine if they just need to build their lives up. Okay, so this right here is a hostel. This is individuals who are, they're maybe not struggling with alcohol or extreme mental illness. This is them, okay, I'm poor, now what do I do? Well, they build the compound they live on. They grow the plants that help feed them, medicines that help treat them. I'm talking about what we've done for thousands of years. We just abandon it for whatever we call this society. Doesn't really work for everyone, I'll tell you that much. We have 500 million people homeless right now in the United States alone. Right next to them is the labor rate. Allied Sovereignties Coalition version of it means that we're not going to be robbing these people. We're going to be using what they gain and earn to keep this going. Not to mention, we're providing training and talent for all the locations. You got to put a face on these people, showing that they're not just something that you throw away. Okay? And then, after they're done with this journey, if they want to, and that's if they want to, they can move on to this one, where it's, you know, a house out in this, or maybe something else. It's a process, you know, from getting them there, finding out what they need, documentation, license. This is what the city was asking for. And there were cases where, you know, it was more argument than anything, you know, fighting both ways sometimes when I was there at these meetings. And it's because the passions are very high for this. I'd say if this thing existed right here, right now, somewhere out in a nice, beautiful countryside where people can find that peace and find that dignity again, then this can actually be done. This can be done. This requires the acquisition of property, yes. Why not coalition own that? Why not individuals in the community help fund it? You know, how about this is now something that they don't have any ground to complain about. It's not going to be next to a liquor store, but it might be next to a farm or a ranch. Which, hey, if that rancher needs some labor or some hands to help cut the wheat or the alfalfa, they're right there, right there. So, you know, that's why I wanted to bring this to you. It's about the dreamers aspect of me. Anyone else want to speak?
I just like that idea. You don't have to give me that. I just love that idea. And I'm wondering if we can start raising funds towards that. And what Josh is talking about is really, you know,
So,
substantial.
We could build it around where DHI is at Montezuma. They're building up a bunch of rehabs, they have DHI, they have a bunch of infrastructure already built for these kind of people who just have space to go and get the treatment they need. I was thinking if we can build something over there, it would be like the perfect location to just start an actual zone for the mental health and betterment of society.
Montezuma?
You know, when we go down that all subs and go down to Montezuma, it's called Montezuma now,
I think we should do that.
if we can find some land over there, we can start building.
Yeah, I think that we should do that.
I agree.
Mhm. And I think when people hear about what we're doing on this kind of thing, they will come in and want to come and help. Because it seems so abstract to them when they read that in the, you know, it's just foreign to them.
yes, and you know,
When they
again,
see actual, you know.
Yeah, tangible reality.
Mhm.
we're gonna have to start small, like how an ant colony starts. Couple ants, little bits of progress here and there. You know, ultimately, I have to work with Josh to create an LLC so that we had some ideas flat out. Let's raise some money with food. Well, we don't have a food license. Well, let's get a food license. Someone said a food truck. I don't have one. Get a food truck. Create as many lucrative community-owned enterprise operations as possible. If not, it's the whole thing. That would be great. So that we can pay people right and start creating a crowdsourced funding system that constantly feeds all these ideas. What's behind the problem on this one? Well, if I could dollar value that compound, I'm pretty sure it's in the several millions. But it doesn't have to start there. It can start with that aircraft hangar. Just a quick crisis center to get people out of the snow in the winter. Get them there. You know, they have that aircraft hangar plus tents. I mean, I can almost do it this way, so I'm not gonna do it. But, you know, they're out of the wind. It may not be the warmest situation, but go bundle up in that sleeping bag in your tent. There's a bathroom, a shower or showers, and someone who can provide security, clerical work, and possibly even some medical oversight, you know? That would be great, but that's gonna require money. So ASC has to start building on the ideal of creating enterprise. So if we gotta start small, hot dog stand out in front of this place or some other stores whoever wants to participate. You know, we're gonna do that little operation, 70% for the working person out there earning that money, because we gotta believe it the whole way. Then 30% goes to the coalition for the three different operations. One we call just savings, one we call universal basic income or benefits. By the way, the UBI, Universal Basic Income, is not a new topic, especially with AI. They are predicting that with the advent of rise of AI and the replacement of jobs, that the government's almost going to have to create a universal basic income. Okay. And finally, that third piece, we're raising money for overhead to take care of all our enterprise operations. It's very shameful that someone has a good idea and they can't pay for it because they're doing it all alone. All right.
So I have to go, but you
Oh,
got
thank you,
my
Deborah.
info.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Okay,
See you later.
See you
Where
later.
is it, where's that place gonna
So-
be at? The Kennedy.
Oh, the music?
Yeah,
Yeah,
mariachis.
yeah. I
Okay,
thought it started at,
3.
oh, that's good.
I'm going to BHI tomorrow to talk about the AOT, Assisted Outpatient Treatment
where are you
Program,
going?
the BHI and Alta Vista. But at BHI, I'm gonna take a look around the land, see if there's anything that we could potentially use, that we can actually start something. Because everything's an idea until we put it into
Yeah,
reality.
right.
So if they have something that we could use, even lease and build upon, I think it'll be a great way to foundation this,
Yeah,
and then we can really start building.
You know where I always wanted to do was the old train roundhouse. Now, the old train
I like that.
roundhouse is a little bit out of town, and I know that Gilfeld buys, I think it's Gilfeld, one of the big companies in town, rents that space because it's city owned. It's not even owned by the railroad. It's city owned, but they rent that space just to keep their overstock of, couches and stuff like that. But that is a perfect place. It's out of town, not really, but it's in town. It's away from everything. And it's a really nice structure.
Grand,
Because
right?
years,
Grand.
yeah,
I thought that place
I
would
love
look really
the
cool as
architecture.
a venue, like for music.
Oh, I know.
What did you say,
And
Jeff?
it's
I
the
thought it would look
city,
really cool as a venue
the
for
city
music.
is sitting on that.
Oh, I love
And
that
so-
architecture.
Me too. And then years ago, they used to have the doors open, right?
Yeah, I think that
They
was
used to have the doors open.
private
And then,
ownership.
I always wanted to deal with that. But, here's the main thing why the sociological aspect of helping the poor and the needy is that they've been classified as the others. The others. Because just out of curiosities, I go to the Tuesday mornings is the food distribution over at the Samaritan House. And good thing I speak Spanish, and you should hear what the people say in the line. It's an earful. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and the food, and this and that, and I'm hungry. And then the lady, I don't have power steering in my car because I don't have power steering fluid money. And these people, and I help them out a lot. I got the lady a gallon of gas, stuff like that. And, but it's like the people that, we have working jobs, Walmart, the state hospital, the university, we have regular people working Monday through Friday, and they don't have time for anything. And they just see people and they pass them by, because like I said, I'm standing out there when I'm watching, I'm standing in line with all these poor people, and they don't know what I'm doing. But, and the people, when they drive by, they don't even look. They stay straight ahead because they don't want anybody to, And I'm kind of known in town, and sometimes I'll even wave to people I don't know, just because it's the others, and so
Yeah.
that's a big problem.
That's-
And
Everybody's so
there's
easy,
really no
busy,
solution to it.
fast food, fast pace,
Right.
Monday through Friday work, come home, cook dinner, do the dishes, take the kids to bed, and all this stuff. Nobody has time for anything.
We know the problem, that is a problem, but we can't change the minds of the populace. We can only do what we can.
I
do.
know, I'm just
And
saying.
By doing
that's-
those things,
you know.
it could just tangentially change the minds.
That's what
Yeah,
happens usually.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're running on sympathy of the
Yeah, but
public.
we can't run on sympathy
Sympathy and pity.
when we can
to
actually
help
run
these
on
people.
actions.
Yeah, but it has to start somewhere inside.
It has.
Social.
And this is where
And
it's
that's
beginning.
my point.
It's already started, and we're making it grow. But just by talking about it, just by doing things to make it better.
Yeah.
Just the conversation goes a long way. You know, this image that I put out is really just a pueblo. You know, that's what it is.
It looks like a MASH unit.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
pueblo.
Yeah.
And you know, the pueblo it's funny because if you look at Indian market and how much money it brings to the state on an annual basis, it's gargantuan. It's in the, I think it's in the trillion. It's a lot of money for a couple of 20 point some odd $billion a year. You know, and this is people just doing artisan work, pottery. You know, people just wanting to come and look at the adobe houses, you know. They want to see this rustic world that once used to exist that probably was a bit better in social justice, I think. And, you know, we don't necessarily need the public to see how these people are growing because, you know, when they go down to the plaza in Santa Fe and they buy a piece of pottery, it might be coming from a house on a reservation that has no water, no electricity. You better believe a limitation of dignity. And said pottery sells for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. You know, this is the southwestern state right next to Arizona that produces some of the most renowned and sought after art in the world. These individuals who are going through all kinds of things tend to be the ones who can create this kind of art that changes someone's ideal of whether it's pottery or a priceless piece of art. I might want to say they're more inclined to it because of their societal rejection. And you know what? Based on the statistics of how many of them are Native American out there on the streets, I might want to say you're just giving them back their dignity.
Yeah, for sure.
So my proposition, as we're coming up to the end of this meeting, we all think of something that we can do, and we work on it. I've mentioned a few things that I'm going to do, and I'm going to do them. I'm going to get this program started. I'm going to work with the courts and the people and the doctors to find the people that are in most need. I'm also going to scout the areas for good lands that we could possibly use. But I can only do so much. So that's
Of course.
for the next 2 weeks, that's my, so if we can go around and say what our goal can be, I think that would be a good way to end it off.
Yeah, I think we should start right now and start raising money through Domino's. That doesn't seem to be too difficult to
Yeah,
do. That's
do that.
just word of mouth and.
Yeah, it's
spreading
paper,
it.
yeah, we don't really have,
Yeah,
I'll
you just
call
have to go there and meet with them.
I'll call the management and inquire more how it
how
operates.
we do it, and I think that just sounds like word of mouth and
Does it-
getting the communication out.
Any community places that we can post that fundraiser, anyone that you guys know that'd be a way I can help.
Here,
Distribution here.
I do have a nonprofit. That's what this section of the building is.
Oh, you have a nonprofit, huh?
The Sanctuary Arts Alliance, it's a 501(c)(3).
So if I get it, I'm a filmmaker, you know that,
I
okay?
did not, that's cool.
Okay, my film that I have to start very soon is on the wrongful prison convictions. They send innocent people to prison, and we have thousands and thousands throughout the country. And I'm the advocate for 2 guys in Texas right now. So that's what, you know, I have to do. But in between that, I'm ready to.
I'm willing to help, I'll interview whatever.
What I was gonna say is that George is gonna try to get me a grant, but I need an umbrella. Could you be the umbrella?
Yeah, the Sanctuary Arts Alliance and film works very well.
Oh, that'd be beautiful. Okay.
Speaking of
that's
which, I need
cool.
to work with you on
That'd be
creating the
great.
LLC for ASC.
Let me know when.
For
Yeah,
profit,
it's gonna
an
take a
LLC.
little bit to find the right foundation. Okay.
I don't know if you already have one, but
Just give me a
And
call.
when I get it done, we'll have a big showing.
Film and
I do have some good lights and stuff. I can contribute as much as I can. Sound,
You do that?
I can do what I can with the things I have.
Because I used to use the Panasonic, okay?
I don't have a good camera, but I have.
But I hear that I could do it on the
movie quality.
smartphone, I think.
That's honestly all you, if you have a really good smartphone, you have
Yeah,
everything you want.
that's what I heard,
And I'll
so.
get in touch with you, getting you some money for the formation of the LLC for ASC.
Okay.
That's the for-profit end of things, because we have to have for-profit license for an ongoing you know, and
Yeah, to get monies to
yeah.
open a bank account.
We're not gonna turn into Walmart, we're gonna turn into the humanitarian version of what everything should be anyway, but, you know, we do need to make money for this whole operation. And my thing is turning enterprise and business and the enthusiasm that people have for business into the lucrative property. And, you know, there's plenty of people who want to start a business. We might be, at some point when we have the funds, the way for them to get into business under our umbrella as well. You know, so they are immediate dynamic members. You know, there's plenty of people who want to open up a food truck and hot dog stand, they just don't have a means to do it. Now, if they want to work under our agreements, being the 70, 1, or 10-10-10 split, Allied Sovereignties gets 30%, but we pay all their bills and we get them the things they need. They make the money and do the thing that they do. That's all they have to do. And then, yes, please come to meetings, help us decide stuff for their business. But that's what I'll do, is I'm going to try to form the final LLC with help from Josh here. I'm going to talk to the management for the Domino's and find out all the caveats and all the mediums. I'll work on a flyer for that, so maybe we can take it to several locations. Maybe the Presbyterian would be willing to allow the nonprofit portion of that operation to ensue. They have to buy pizzas for their clergy, I'm sure. So, you know, anything else, as I go along, I'm always going to show you guys something about the environment. One of my other major concerns, along the fact that we are impoverishing everybody except for the elite. So, you know, I will continue doing my research as a scientist and engineer and provide all the answers I can about what we do know about what is going on with our planet and the technologies that can reverse it. We need to get those out there. But that's a long-term goal, just like this is a long-term goal. Right now, we need to bring in more members. We need to bring in more people. Urge them to come. You know, tell them that this is a return on their investment. We are promising them money back at some point in the form of that one of those 10%. That's the universal basic income. We want to generate that as a company. We want to give people money back from the operations that we create.
That's very important, but I think what will draw people in is that what we will be doing for the community.
Yes.
That's what they want. They're concerned about the Samaritan House. They're concerned about homeless. They're concerned about mentally ill. They're concerned about issues.
Let's let our actions dictate the path forward.
I think
What?
so.
Let's let our actions dictate the path forward.
So I think we'll get people in if we put it out there, what we're up to.
And I'm terrible at advertisements, so please don't ask me to do that.
I could work with you on that.
We can go on the radio. For
Clara, do you want to say anything?
I'm not sure. I'm still kind of working it out in my head.
I understand.
Does anything sound?
It sounds good, but, well, maybe this is long term, but I'll start from our beginning and go from there.
What is your short-term goal if you could contribute something?
For the coalition,
Yeah.
that there will be people willing to, there's a lot of people that want to do something, but they're not willing to
Right.
take 30% of their money and giving it to the coalition, or, you know.
Right.
No, they ain't.
No, but we have to make it enticing for them.
And my enticement is that once we have the funding, what we're going to do with their contribution is we're going to take care of their taxes and their overhead for them. Not only that, we're also going to try to acquire facilities for them to work in. So for example, if I had a guild of computer technicians, they need a place to operate. Under the coalition, they would all be making 70% of what that unit generates. There's going to be someone who makes more than them or less than them. When they're putting in that 30%, what they're doing is they're giving themselves back 10% of that in the form of what we call UBI, or a benefits package. The other 10% goes into savings that they can choose of what they do, like how we're doing now. Once we have money in the bank, this isn't gonna belong to me, Josh, or anyone. It belongs to you guys and all of us, to the coalition. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way business is done. So the business, as we do it right now, is basically it goes in one direction. The businesses that we have in existence feed their top hand profits to ownership. And some businesses do the right thing and they pay their employees, but we know that that's not the case for all of it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate a place of fair income. And if we can do that, and like I said, we're gonna start with something really simple and small. My goal is maybe an ice cream thing, a snow cone machine, or a hot dog stand. Someone's gonna work there. 30% goes to the coalition. He doesn't have to worry about any of that equipment. All he has to do is make hot dogs, and he makes 70% of the entire operation. We bought the equipment, we pay for his insurance, we do his taxes, or his or hers, and that person only has to sell hot dogs and make money. We're not gonna give them $5 an hour for running a hot dog stand all day. That's not good. On those days where they're over at the People's Fair, and they're making a good amount of money, they could be walking home with thousands of dollars, and that's okay. That's what we want. We want it to work. We want them to see a different way of conducting business. And so that the main operation of ASC is community-owned business, resources, and enterprise that they own, they make the decisions on, and that they run ultimately from the ground up, especially the worker, who maybe sometimes right now, as we see it, when the worker says something about working conditions, they often get tossed aside. That's a reality. In this model, the worker is going to be the one that we listen to first because they're the ones there doing the operation. That's what we want to change. That and the fact that they're not getting paid what they should be for their time. So yeah, at the very minimal, if we can all do something, is to really just think about it, because this is a learning process.
I have something to do with you.
What's that?
I'll put on a guitar lessons for free kind of donation policy. We'll do it all day. If you want to come in and learn some music, I'll teach you. If you know anybody that knows how to teach, let them know and see if they would like to join us.
It's beautiful.
And I'm willing to do that in 2 to 3 weeks, a month, whatever works for everybody. But again, I'm terrible at advertisement, so if you guys could just work on getting that word out, I'm ready and willing to do whatever I can.
And you probably have a lot of young people in here. That'd be beautiful. High school students,
That's
and even
But
college.
I want to bring music to the kids.
That's so beautiful.
It's really the thing that saves my life. I want to be able to give that ability to somebody else.
So can you teach instruments here?
Guitar, bass, drums, piano, general music.
You can
theory.
teach all that?
Yep.
Well, we certainly could make use of that. Wow.
That's the whole beauty of this.
And if we just find other people, because I can't teach 20 people like
So what we
individually.
need is a little card or something saying this,
Just get the word out and the people will come.
Yeah. And I was thinking about the People's Fair. Maybe we could set up a booth and get somebody, a homeless person or whoever to be there, a couple of them, and they get the money and we get just a small portion of it,
That's
since we don't have
precise.
a building.
That's precisely the measure.
I like to think that if they can't buy the guitar, say, they could just work in certain services, like help us build something, and then they get a guitar. And I would just put that into my nonprofit and be able to disperse it to them.
You're gonna have a house full if they find, that's beautiful.
It's like this.
Between high school students and the university. One time, a long time ago, I knew somebody, human resources, and I said, the business people are not treating Black students, with dignity. And I said, let's invite the business people for breakfast or lunch. I don't work on islands, but I thought that because I rent rooms to, students who are there. And so we have to think about that. They isolate themselves, the young Blacks that come from different states, They don't want to walk out on the streets
I mean,
here.
I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and
Where?
Boston, Massachusetts, And there's a huge black population. There's still a bunch of racists in Boston, but I never really saw why they would be ostracized in any way. I hung out with everybody.
Because we have a racist country.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we
Again, see.
Not only
we can
towards
just
blacks,
be the
but
ones that
Native
offer the
Americans.
opportunity to everybody,
Yeah.
regardless of race.
All we have to do is break the barriers.
Yeah, it's
And
the
I've already broken that barrier a long time ago,
That's
at least in my own mind. I understand that they have hardship, but I'm just gonna treat them like any other human being.
Of course, that's beautiful.
There was an Indian market that my dad attended once where it was, the whole market was, the customers went in to buy the jewelry and they checked out in the front. And what they did is they took the average of everything that everyone made and they divided it by the number of artists that were there. There were some artists there that brought what they could. They were hungry, they were starving, they're from the res, and no one bought their stuff. But they showed up, they traveled hundreds of miles to be there with their art, and someone simply didn't buy it.
When I was in band, that was the issue all the time. I traveled hundreds of miles, nobody shows up to the gate.
But
I
they
still
popped
didn't-
out with money regardless.
Same.
That's the whole point, is how do you turn the one-sided lucrative operation into a operation that more people can enjoy?
A collaboration with a real end goal that can be worked towards.
Maybe there's some restaurants that would work with us and then we could take the restaurant over for a day.
There's,
And the people who work and get what you're saying, since we don't have these established buildings at the moment.
Right.
We see what we can do in the community right now, and they see what we're doing.
it's gonna be the day where
Collaboration.
hundreds of thousands to even a couple million in the account, just from that 10% draw, once this gets moving. I believe it can happen because that's what Amazon did. I believe it can happen because that's what eBay did. They took a small percentage, offering a platform for people to sell abroad.
Right, right.
And now they're part of aerospace. Okay, I don't think we're gonna go that far yet, and maybe not in my lifetime. But the minute we have X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars in an account, and this big question of, okay, guys, what do we do next? Because this is gonna be the coalition's money, the coalition's property, the coalition's capital ventures, meaning enterprises, businesses, and coalition events. Yes, we're gonna have to bring in the people for them to believe into this, because a lot of people don't believe in much right now. I mean, I don't blame them. I really don't. But I have seen in my life where, the Native American population with an Indian market got together and said, look, no one's going home hungry or poor tonight. So they got together, they sold together like they used to in the past in the tribes that they once lived in, and everyone got a piece of that pie. All equal down the road. Yeah, there were some who sold more than the others, and they were a little upset, but you know what? It could happen to them too, where they don't sell a single piece of art. So, it's a double inflection. We're just not used to thinking like that right now. Where we're so programmed to, you gotta take care of it by yourself and do it all by yourself. Raise a business by yourself.
Yeah.
Rise above the others. That's what we're taught, the crab in the bucket thing. We're not taught that, that we can actually do something different, that's all. That's where we're at. And yeah, part of it's just a learning process and spreading the word. Bring your friends, bring people who are really concerned about what's going on, and offer this as maybe solace at the very beginning. I told Josh that if at the very beginning all we have is each other to simply talk about this is already a success story.
I agree. We just need to keep talking. I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
I think we all have an idea of what we can do.
Yeah, really.
Now.
I don't know what I do, I'll tell you that. Yo quiero hablar en español, so I was always thinking about teaching the white people to speak Spanish,
That's awesome.
I mean, I'm sick of, if you moved to New Mexico and you don't speak Spanish, I feel sorry for you, because you'll never fit into the society. And then I'm in the Highlands and I'm teaching, some law classes and all this, American national government, and I'm, dealing with those big black, football players and all this stuff. And here I am, this little old lady up there telling them what's right, you know? I do have a lot of influence in the college kids.
That's great.
You know,
If you can let them know what we're trying to do.
Yes.
I know,
Youth.
but just saying it, I already know that those kids. You gotta give them a little thing that's,
Yeah,
a
That's
little
why
thing
I
that
need
carry
some kind of
in their
advertising.
pocket, right?
I need
It
to
says,
show
oh, those people,
There we
okay,
go.
we're
There
gonna
we
play
go.
music. You know what I found out, that, if I open that door and turn on the radio, everybody that walks by comes in. And so, it's, you know, and then you could tell them about it, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I would.
Yeah,
But
yeah, so we
need
need
to
a
work
little
with Highland and tell them about it. We just need to show, we need something to show them.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
Highlands, like all colleges, welcome the formation of clubs and groups.
yeah,
If the fundamentals that we were carrying, I feel ashamed of saying I brought this ideal, because I don't think I have. I think it's echoed through time.
yeah, I think so too.
Hit me really hard in the head,
Yeah.
especially when I had a daughter, to worry about her future. But I bet you anything, the ASC reflects something that people can hold onto, especially the youth. And yes, all academic individuals that are concerned about right now, I've had some feedback from them, and they've told me, oh boy, careful with the greedy ones in your group and all that. I'm not gonna let that stop me, and I bet you,
What
I
did
bet
they say?
Agree.
the greedies, the greedy, take your group down and all that
Oh,
stuff.
God.
And I'm like, yes, that's possible, but guess what? When it happens, we're gonna carry on. But the youth that you have access to, the people we have access to, this is the beginning of this. And yes, we gotta
And
do
you know
it.
what? Yeah, a good thing, well, I go to the bars in the afternoon. All the old men are there, and the workers for lunch are there.
There you go.
And a lot of times, you sit next to somebody and I'll just put out a piece, something that I'm working on, and I could catch that somebody's watching or saying, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm writing a paper on poverty, And I said, do you want to edit it? And I've had strangers just like edit my papers that, first drafts and stuff. People that I don't even know. But it's all like the personality of pushing things and
Try to get people to
Yeah.
watch those videos. I'm not the best filmographer and all that, but I feel that I may have been able to generate something that people can relate to and help them build it on their own. You know what would please me? Is if that we were forming this and then all of a sudden another ASC formed over there and we didn't even know it. I'd be giddy. I'd be happy. I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
We just need to find like-minded individuals.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about building something, so.
And this is different than next door, that community foundation with Elmo. This is different. This is different.
Very different.
This is.
Yeah, this is more collective.
Yeah.
And collectivism has gone through all humanity forever.